Hi there, welcome to Nepi Invest. I have one word to describe the trading on the Australian markets today, and that word is wow. What an absolutely interesting, unusual, amazing day on the Australian markets. Now, to understand what happened on the Australian markets today, I think you do have to be following closely about what drives the Australian market up or down. Now, I was planning on doing a video on the horrible week it was for the Australian markets before trading had begun. That was my plan because it looked like the Australian markets were going to be down every single trading day this week, which in itself is really unusual. You don't see it happen all that often that every single trading day in a week is down. In fact, to have 5 days down in a row in itself is quite unusual. So I went back through the last few years, in fact, 3 years, 3.5 years or so, and it has only happened three times before that the XGO was down 5 days in the trading week. June 2022, August 2021, and February 2020. And that June 2022 was actually, XGO was actually down 7 days in a row. The other two times was only 5 days in a row. So I was planning on doing a video on that very unusual occurrence of the SGO or the XAO being down 5 days, in fact, 5 training days of the week. And we knew that the more than likely, and when I say more than likely, 100% likely that the Australian markets were going to be opening down big because the American markets were down big. In fact, the NASDAQ was down 1.84%, and the Australian futures were down 100 points, pointing to an opening of the XGO down about 1.5%. And that's exactly what happened. The XGO opened well, after about 10 minutes of trading. And for those who don't know, all the companies don't start trading at the same time. There is a staggered opening, and all companies are trading by 10 a.m. And at that point in time, the XGO was down something like 1.5%, may have been down more than that. And then we saw something unusual. And this unusual thing we did see, I took no notice to it because as soon as those 10 minutes were up, that first 10 minutes of trading, and I saw the SGO was down 1.5%. I went, yep, it's going to be down big today. So I went to do other stuff. I had a shower, watched some TV, and then I came back to my computer at about 3:55 p.m. and I was shocked. I was absolutely bewildered by the very fact that the SGO was only down 0.2% at that point in time. And then we had to go through the closing auction. And the closing auction can be quite intriguing at times because it can sort of pinpoint the mood of the market. And if the XGO actually went up during the closing auction, that would be a good sign moving forward. If the XGO was sold off during the closing auction, that would be actually quite bearish. But what happened during the closing auction? The XGO went from about 7,050 points to 7,069. And that meant with that rally, that upwards pressure during the closing auction, so there was a lot of buying coming in, that meant the SGO was actually up for the day, up by 0.05%. We have not seen this sort of trading day on the XGO for a long time. I can only think of one time in the past that we have seen a day like this, and this was back in either March or April 2020 during the COVID-19 financial panic, or just after that panic. And to be fair with you, that sort of day wouldn't have been that unusual then. But to see it today is intriguing. It's really interesting. Why was there so much buying during today? Was there any news? That sort of thing. So I'm going to have to try to find out why. Initially, the SGO was down 1.5%, maybe even more, but was up by the end of trading. In fact, if you look at the one-day candlestick, you will not see this sort of candlestick on the XGO all that often. We saw it get very close on the 4th of May, 2023. We did see it bounce, but it actually closed down on that day. So to see this sort of candlestick, I think they call this sort of candlestick a hammer or some sort of thing. So we have a very small body, and it's a green body, which means the XGO actually did finish up for the day. And there's a very long shadow to the bottom of the main body, which is telling us there was a lot of buying during the day. You only get those really long shadows if there's a lot of buying. And typically, if there's a lot of buying, that is quite bullish. So this one-day candlestick is a very bullish one-day candlestick. You see this sort of candlestick for companies or anything, that's a bullish sign. And it's probably pinpointing or highlighting, highlighting that probably, that we have reached the bottom of this little drop in the market. And it's sort of understandable, because if we go back to about November of last year, anytime the XGO falls below about 7,000, we see it bounce. It's happened now 1, 2, 3, 4 times during that period. Now, last time it happened was back in July, and the XGO actually hit 7,000, then we saw the bounce. Today, the XGO fell below 7,000 for a few hours, and then we saw it bounce. But the bouncing began at 10 a.m. When I say bouncing, I'm talking about buying. So selling was more dominant in that first 10 minutes. So during the opening phase of the market, the selling was all there. But as soon as that opening phase had come to a completion, we saw buying coming in. And we can see that if we look at the 1-minute chart. So we have to zoom out a little bit here. So this is the 1-minute chart. So a massive amount of selling in that first 10 minutes. The XGO went down from about 7,068 all the way down to a low of 6,957.2. That low was at 10 a.m., just as that opening phase in the market had come to an end. And then buying completely overwhelmed selling during the rest of the day. We didn't even see any sort of bounce. It was just a really gradual climb through the day. And not only that, the XGO closed at the high of the day. So instead of doing a video on how it was such a horrible week, I'm going to have to do a video on, well, a little bit more bullish now, because of what an amazing day this was for the XGO. A very unusual day, a very bullish day, which tells us that the level of 7,000 has held strong again. So 7,000 is quite a powerful, strong support level for the XJO. And that is probably one of the reasons we saw a lot of buying coming in after 10 a.m. because the XJO did fall below 7,000, and there probably would be a lot of traders out there who saw that it fell below 7,000 and thought this was a time to buy. Not only that, it's very unusual to see the XJO down 5 days in a row. So it would have been very unusual to see it down 6 days in a row. So I think a lot of participants in the markets, a lot of day traders, those sort of people were expecting a bounce either today, late today, or on Monday, Tuesday of next week. Now, what could throw a spanner in the works is what happens on the American markets. Now, another reason why the Australian markets might have bounced during today was the American futures. Now, we trade more the American futures these days than we have ever. And this really began during the COVID-19 financial panic. I saw the Australian markets react to the American futures way more than what happened to the American markets overnight. So even though the NASDAQ was down 1.84%, and that's why we did see the Australian markets drop, possibly the reason why the Australian markets rallied, I don't know, haven't looked at any news, anything like that to explain why the Australian markets rallied today. But one possible reason is the American futures are up, and possibly up big. So the investors, the professionals are expecting a good day on the American markets, and that might mean that next Monday, this is what they're thinking is, that might mean next Monday will be a really good day on the Australian markets, and they're just getting ahead of that really good day. So they started buying, and that was what caused this really good rally in the XGO today. The very fact that it was up after being down 1.5% was very unusual. Now, I was going to actually go through the 3 previous days that we have seen the XGO down every single day in a trading week. So June 2022, which was down for 7 days in a row, August 2021, and February 2020. Now, in June 2022, when it was down 7 days in a row, that was at the end of that run of 7 days in a row, that was signifying the bottom of the market. That was a double bottom we saw there. The first double bottom we saw in June. The next double bottom was in September. And then we saw a really nice rally after those 7 days down in a row. In August 2021, completely different. That actually signified the top in the market because the XGO during that period, a very small period of time, went above the trading range. This trading range has been in place since 2009, so 15 years. And only once has the XGO gone above this trading range, And that was in August 2021. And as soon as it went above the trading range, we saw it down 5 days in a row. And that signified the top in the market. If we go back to February 2020, that actually signified when the market was down 5 days in a row or 5 trading days in a week. That signified the start of the COVID-19 financial panic. Not only was the XGO down 5 days in a row, or that one trading week, it was down massive each and every day. So let's go back to that week, that awful week in February. So for some reason, when I'm recording, TradingView is not quite receptive. So I'll try to zoom out. It's really annoying. So these 5 days down in a row in February 2020 started on really, it was actually 6 days in a row. It started on the 21st of February 2021. It was only down 0.33%. But then on the Monday, the 24th of February, down 2.25%. The next day, it was down 1.6%, then 2.3%, then 0.785%, and then 3.3%. It was also down on the Monday, the 2nd of March. So it was actually down 7 days in a row, down 0.8%. And then we saw a bounce, a very weak bounce, the next day up 0.7%. So very rare to see the XGO or the XAO down 5 days in a row, or 5 trade days in the week. And typically, but not always, but typically you will see a bounce after those 5 trading days down. Not like what we saw in February 2020, because that was the COVID-19 financial panic, and there was a reason why the market was panicking that point in time, and it was justified panicking, in my opinion. So what does all this mean? Well, it actually means nothing. Who knows what's going to happen in the next few trading days? The one thing we do know is the market loved that the XGO got below 7,000, and that's where we saw a lot of buying. So it seems like this nice little support level at 7,000 has remained steady and strong. And that's really all I've got for today's video on this absolutely amazing trading day on the XJO. If you have any questions, any thoughts, just leave your thoughts, your questions in the comment section of this video. Otherwise, I am not a financial advisor. If you do need financial advice, make sure you seek out someone who is qualified and can speak to your own financial needs. That's it for this video. Have a good day. Bye.